Test 1, 2.
Test 1, 2.
seeing the boys. I was just mentioning yesterday with you guys questions, but we'll get on. Happy with that?
I don't know.
Is it just the two lads coming, or the girls as well?
No, the girls aren't
Girls
coming.
couldn't make it.
They've been there.
So just Kaz and I in the middle and the two guys on the outside? Or, don't get on.
No, don't get them up, man. Just,
Stick the crowd.
and then afterwards, we just have a chat like what they're doing now.
Okay. Alright.
How long are we going to go for? And who's running it? Who's running this?
I've got it for 2 hours. Hinksy's late, so I'm probably going to start.
Hinksy's
Hinksy's at
How was it going to be?
It's like 6:15.
I'm just waiting till 6:15. Yeah.
Okay, alright.
Yeah, wait till we have a couple.
I'm happy to have a go. not Hinksy, but
No, it's fine. At the end of the day, just put a message out right now and say just delay 10 minutes and we'll start 6:15.
On live stream.
And then is Hinksy just going to run it and ask questions?
I think
I've already sorted one out.
yeah.
So all that comes over and thoughts?
Play on.
Anything else?
Shawnee, are we all right with mic or no mic?
I've got this one here.
That's for live stream. All right. Just going to check with Joshy that we're okay with the live stream. Can you give us a thumbs up, Joshy? We're good? Perfect. Well, firstly, thank you so much to everyone who is present tonight. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much, boys, for being here. We really appreciate your support on our very first fan forum. We've got the live stream, which is currently running. Shawnee, everything's okay? Thank you. I think how we'd like to start tonight is by just saying a huge thank you from Kaz and I in our first, 4 weeks, Kaz. It's been a big month, an exciting month, but I guess the energy and passion that Kaz and I have felt from each and every one of the conversations that we've had in these first couple of weeks have filled us with immense pride for, the journey that we're embarking on. I think you have all heard over the last couple of weeks, Kaz and I speak about this rebuild, the journey that we want to bring the community, the fans, all stakeholders on with us, with Kaz and I. And we're just really excited tonight to sit down, have an authentic, honest conversation with each and every one of you. I know we'll get some fans through our live stream, we'll get some fans here live, some questions here live. But the most important thing for Kaz and I is just to have an honest, frank conversation with you all, answer as many questions as we possibly can, and just sit here until we do, really. Kaz, I don't know about you, but I'm going to be plans tonight. You got any plans?
Mate, this is my plan.
Macklin and Kai definitely have plans tonight, but thank you again. It's an honour to be here with you all, and we're really excited to go on this journey, and we will. Like I said, we will sit here and answer every single question that you have, as we have done since we began on the 17th of July. So I'll just pass over to Kaz before we get going.
Firstly, Rob, did you get your ticket sorted?
Yeah.
All right, that's the main thing, because we want to make sure, and that's a serious note, there's obviously going to be a couple of little hurdles and bumps along the way, but we'll make sure that we get everything right, and that's all we can ask for. And that's what we're trying to do. So, Rob, I'm glad you got that sorted. And we thank you for your support, and we thank everyone that's come out. And likewise, everyone that's jumping online who can't be with us tonight. And I feel that that's been recepted really well. I think that, not everyone can come out like you have tonight, but at least we're opening up the conversation with everyone. So we welcome everyone here tonight, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think it will be the first of many. And we want to keep this dialogue open with each and every one of you as important members and fans of the Brisbane Roar. You all play a big role in where we're taking this. So, as Zach said, we'll be here as long as we need to answer all your questions, so you can go away and you'll be sick of us by the end of the night. That's our hope. To get started, I might pass this on to Sean, our more than capable head of marketing and head of communications. So, Sean, do you want to sort of lead the way? But I thought maybe a bit of an open conversation tonight is probably the best way to kick off the agenda.
Sure. So guys, any questions we open to the floor? Daniel's straight away. All right.
For those that don't know me, Ian Dalzell, I'm also, I don't do that.
But the live stream does.
I didn't get to the live stream, sorry. Gentlemen, I'm very heartened by the words I hear you speaking there, and I look forward to a new era. We've had a very, very bumpy ride since our last Premiership and Championship in 2013-14. So even just getting us into the top 6 this year, I think is going to be a positive step. I did email in a couple of questions, and I don't see anybody here from the football department, so you may not be able to answer one of the questions, but can I ask both of them? And so the first question I wanted to ask was in relation to players and coaches and support staff and everything that we've signed or will sign in the future, is it possible that we can be told how long they have signed for, especially with players? Because
Yeah, sure.
in my opinion, that has a big effect on whether people buy memberships or come to the games. Because if we haven't got any players of any note, then people are going to say, well, it's going to be the same old again, no matter how good the top of the tree may be. So is that something that the club could look at? Because in the past, they say we signed a player, like last year Charlie Austin. We signed Charlie Austin. We didn't know whether it was for 1 season, 2 seasons, 3 months, or whatever it was. So I think that's, so if I can address that, and then I'll ask the second question, unless somebody else has got something else to say.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Do you want me to address it or you want me to? No, I appreciate your question. I think that firstly, you're speaking to myself, who is taking over the responsibility of the football department. So just to be clear, Kaz is CEO chairman. My role and responsibilities will be focusing on the football department and actually how we restructure that and how we drive the actual strategy moving forward. I think it's really important from a recruitment perspective that Kaz and I be very clear and honest with you how we want to move forward with this football club. The club has been dying for a real strategy in terms of what we stand for, what is our DNA moving forward. And I think over the last couple of years, as a Brisbane Roar supporter, you've been, I can hear it in your passion, is you've been waiting for what is our DNA? What is it that we stand for as a football club? And I think that from the very first day that Kaz and I walked into this organisation, we set out a very clear vision, a very clear mission and DNA for this football club moving forward. And that is really built around the 2 guys that are here tonight. Really built around nurturing and developing young talent and connecting those pathways throughout Queensland. Now, that doesn't mean that we're going to sign an A-League squad full of NPL players. That doesn't mean we're going to sign a squad that is 17 to 19. But what that really entails is really putting a spotlight on that younger generation that are going to be the bedrock and the foundation of our club moving forward. Now, you've probably seen over the last 24 hours, the last couple of hours, the signing of Lauren from Melbourne City. Now, this was a process that Kaz and I have been on over the last couple of weeks to really restructure our football department and be very clear with our recruitment process in regards to who we want to build this club around moving forward. As I mentioned, when I speak about the actual recruitment process, Kaz and I going away from the game for a number of years and coming back in, we want to really focus on an objective decision and be very clear with how we want to recruit our players. The players that come into our football club moving forward will go through a full process, and that is not one person's decision. It's definitely not my decision. It is a round table decision. And with the Florin example, this was a player that we felt would add a lot of value to our squad moving forward. Now, you probably saw the press release that our fantastic marketing manager put out today, stating that he's signed for 2 years. But I take your feedback in regards to being, I guess, clearer with our communication in regards to how we recruit, why we were recruiting a player, how long the player is with us for. But I think that every decision that you will see moving forward is built around our values as a football club, which is the vision for this club moving forward is we want everyone in Brisbane to be a supporter of Brisbane Roar. Okay? Let's get Brisbane right first before we start embarking on a bigger journey to get the whole of the state to support the Brisbane Roar. But the focus in regards to our vision is to really focus on really reconnecting with local clubs, focusing on the connection that we have with FQ, focusing on the connection that we have with all of our communities. We haven't even tapped into or talked about a lot of the more diverse communities that love and are so passionate about football. So I guess to answer your question, and I'll pass it on to Kaz, I take your comments on board. You'll hear us tonight talk about authenticity, transparency, more communication about the details. Why did we go and specifically select Florin to really add value to this playing group. And we can go into, we're happy to discuss the reasons why, the process that we went into. But a big part of the decision to bring Florian on board is that he is the right person. He brings the right value set. He is an extremely talented and professional footballer that will really, really help the young players around him, like the Henry Hawes, like the Tommy Waddinghams, to really progress their own careers, which is the DNA of our football club moving forward.
Do you want to add anything first? Let's go for questions.
I assume the manager is involved in all these decisions because he's the mind. And his will be a yay or nay ultimately as to whether, no, I want that bloke, or no, get it, I don't want it. But let's say if you chaps probably want this bloke and the manager says, no, I don't fancy him for our team. What's the story then? Will he basically have, okay, we'll take your opinion?
Okay, this is very important, and I'd like to really emphasise this aspect. What this club really needs, and what we need to do, is establish a structured recruitment process that is set by the club. And why this is important, what a lot of clubs have done in the A-League is they rely purely on coaching staff. So the coaching staff will come in and they hand it off and they say, you design the structure and the philosophy of football for this club. Now that coach might last a season or 2 seasons. They go out the door, they take their staff with them, and a completely new structure comes in. So the recruitment structure starts again and the club loses its identity. And if we look at across the board, a lot of clubs at the moment, without naming any of them, that's the philosophy at play. Whether that's good or bad, that's to be told. What we want here is that Brisbane Roar must have its own identity for recruitment. Will the coach or the head coach or the manager have the last say? They are extremely important in that decision making. But it's not just the head coach. How we recruit coaches, how we recruit our women's head coach, how we recruit our academy staff, how we recruit our head of performance, which we've just done, our head physios, they all have to align to this vision. What that means is that when Zach and I pass through and there's new management, the club has a strong foundation that the fans can be proud of, and you can go back to those days of those victories when the club recruited very well. When we recruited Barisha, we recruited Broish. They weren't household names prior to that. What they were was they fit the value system of Brisbane Roar, and players were built around them. So that era, you had players that came through FQ's brilliant academy system. Zach's a product of that as well. But you had Robbie Cruz, you had Tommy Orr, you had
Taj
Minicon. You had all of these players. Now we've lost that, and admittedly, I believe what needs to happen, this identity, we have to with the clubs, the best talent that there is in the state, but also have scouting networks across the country. So to go back to this, it is now a roundtable objective discussion, and we all sit there, including Ross at the moment, ourselves, assistant coaches. We all look at objective data. So we're not just working off one aspect or one person making a decision anymore, or one agent. This is a wholesome process that we want, and we're going to refine it. We've got to start somewhere. But the club needs to have its strong identity so that no matter who comes through, we're pushing out a system that is going to allow us to be successful and win championships in the next couple of years. If we rely on the head coach all the time, and they last 1 or 2 or 3 seasons, we start again. And then there's no philosophy, there's no strategy, and we can't have that anymore. And that's what's been happening. So fans are crying out for big signings, but we don't know if those guys, do they fit the value system of what we're after? Do they ensure that Tommy Waddingham is going to develop into a Socceroos number 9? So we're finding the right senior players that are going to do that. And we've already started speaking to players for the future. And these are ex-Socceroos, these are current Socceroos, these are players that we know, that we played with, because of their strong value system that we want to build a squad around. Now, does that mean some signings may not be perfect? Yes. We can't help that there'll be injuries. That's part of the game. That's part of football. But what we can do is take out the guessing work by having a system that allows open communication, just like what we're doing with the fans, with our advisory council, with the way that we want to approach this, so that we can make a collective decision as a football department to ensure that we try and get it right, more so than not. What we want to do is identify the best people for this club, whether you're a player but also in the office, the kit man, you know, the kit woman. We've already brought on some fantastic people in our high performance. Our new head physio is coming on board. These are people that are aligned in this strategy. So once you get that right, the recruitment becomes pretty exciting. So will we sign big names in the future? 100%. Will we bring the best talent through and allow them to be nurtured and to go on to bigger things? 100%. But what we are is we're winners. So at the end of the day, we're not going to accept second best. We want this club to be at the top, and it's got to start from the leadership. Yeah. Sorry, go.
You go first, excuse me, that as well.
I was going to follow up on Luke.
Do you want the mic, Wally?
I was just going to follow up on that whole question. I'm pleased to hear you say that about the culture of the club, because it's in the past I think that's gone downhill. Certainly the openness that we've seen so far, if you continue doing that, we'll do well. But I do have a question, and that's going to be the perennial problem that you'll come across all the time, is that everybody's talking about getting rid of the backeries. And I think you need to probably openly tell the rest of the community what the situation is in relation to the backeries themselves.
Thanks, Ollie. I'll start and I'll pass on to Kaz. The first thing I'll say about the culture of our football club is that because there's been some, let's say, dishonesty over the years, a lack of transparency, trust is lost, right? And a blaming culture has been created through a lack of trust. And so as we embark on this journey and as we bring the fans and the community with us, we will lead by actions. The trust will not be built on words, and we understand that. But the most important thing for Kaz and I is to be honest and transparent and to bring everyone on the journey with us, through ups, through downs. And I think that the way that we've kind of described it is, as a family, you don't always have good times. With family members, sometimes you fight. Sometimes you don't always agree. But as a family, you come together and you ride the waves. And I think that is the message that Kaz and I have built the first month on, is that we are a family. We want the fans, we want our community to come with us on this journey. But moving on to your comments on the backeries. Kaz and I met the backeries around 3 months ago. We have flown to Jakarta to sit down with Pak Nuwan. We have sat down and spent many hours with the directors. The problem with the perception of the backeries is that they have been living in Jakarta in Indonesia and haven't been necessarily present in Australia, and they haven't been afforded the opportunity to speak openly with yourselves. And so I guess a perception has evolved over time that is completely untrue about the love these people have for our football club. I can tell you an emotional story that Kaz and I spent with them 3 or 4 weeks ago, sitting across the table in their boardroom in Jakarta, and Pak Nuwan said to Kaz and I, all I want moving forward is to have a connection with my football club. He didn't say with my asset, he didn't say with my prized possession, he said with my football club. Mr. Pak Nuwan, who invests an incredible amount of money into this football club, has a deep passion and love for the game. He doesn't talk about any other football club when Kaz and I are with him. But the important thing for Kaz and I is to actually understand this feedback, so that we can actually go back to Pak Nuwan, sit down with him, and have a conversation about how we can help him engage better with the fan base of the Brisbane Roar. And we plan to do that. We met with our advisory council the other night, and a lot of you that are in this room were there, and we said something very similar that night, and that is, the most important thing for Kaz and I is to actually receive this feedback so that we can actually do something about it. And to do something about it is a pretty simple conversation, and that is when we go back to see Pak Nuwan and we have formal conversations board meetings, quarterly reviews, management meetings. We will relay this feedback and we will ask Mr. Nguyen if there's a way that we can communicate through him, through his directors, messages to the fans, ways that we can communicate. And there's so much we can do. We understand we have to respect his privacy as well, but they have empowered Kaz and I to lead this club moving forward. They have put their faith and trust in others in the past to lead this club, and now they've decided to make a change and appoint Kaz and I to be the management of this football club moving forward. So we are living and breathing their value set in regards to communication. Everything that we are speaking of from day one is, I guess, a message from them that they want this club to progress and be more authentic, to have better communication. But I guess from an ownership perspective, we will endeavour over the next couple of months to communicate this with the Backeries and see if we can, I guess, work on that line of communication directly. And I'll pass on to Kaz so he can say a few words. But I think that I'll finish by saying that we understand there's a perception. This perception has probably only become really apparent to Kaz and I in the last couple of weeks, but we endeavour to really, I guess, bring a closer connection between the fan and the ownership.
Just to clarify also, I think you should understand that a lot of people don't understand how much money the Backeries have put into the club and got very little for it. So I appreciate that the money's been there.
Sure.
It's how it's been used in the past.
Sure.
Yeah, and just to emphasise the point that Zach's been saying, there's a genuine interest, there's a genuine request for this change in management, and they have put faith in certain people in the past which may or may not have worked, and that's a business decision, and the one thing that we've identified is that they do have a deep passion and commitment to Brisbane Roar, and by instilling new management with energy that have passion to get this club back to where it should be, that's the first step. What we realised was there was that lack of communication between the owner and the members, and so it's an easy fix for us. It's a matter of us communicating that and opening that dialogue directly with all of you, and that's a simple fix, and hopefully that you've seen and the fans have seen even over the couple of days or weeks a shift in communication or a shift in our communication strategy, and that's going to be enhanced by opening it up with the owners as well. And just remember, they own one of the largest teams in their hometown in Jakarta, a phenomenal club, a huge club, and we've for the first time asked the owners whether we can have a relationship with Persija, and that's what Zach and I want, because we want to expose Brisbane Roar to Asia. What a market! Brilliant. What a market! Brilliant. And so these are, and this is not for them to detail. They've put time into management. They've invested into management to come up with these ideas for the Brisbane Roar. So Zach and I are right onto that, and they've also got interest in a club in England as well. So this is a group that is extremely invested in the sport, is extremely passionate about the sport, and if the commitment was not there, Zach and I wouldn't have accepted a role, because we wouldn't be able to implement the strategy moving forward. But as we progress, the commitment we can make to the fans is to open that dialogue, and not just dialogue from Zach and I speaking all the time, but you want to hear from Jakarta as well, and
from the rest of your management team.
Yeah, of course, no, definitely, and we want to open that up. We want everyone to be on board, and this is all about forward planning. This is about being professional, and what the club has done previously has been extremely reactive. So, if they're just reacting to situations, what we want to do is be extremely proactive, set everything in stone, have a plan, have a process, so that we can implement all of these strategies moving forward. And when you're not prepared, you're always chasing your tail, and I think that's what the club has been doing previously. And that's got to change, and that's something that we're straight onto in our third, fourth week is cleaning up the legacy issues, cleaning up whatever's come before us, But sitting here and saying, we put a hand up, the buck stops now with us, we'll clean everything up and let's move forward collectively. So yes, will it take time? Will it take time for you to trust us, for you to trust the club again? Certainly. But only by actions will that be possible, not just by us sitting here talking because you've heard it before. So we're conscious of that, and this is the moment to turn things around. So to answer the question, we'll work on that piece, and hopefully sooner rather than later you'll see that.
First of all, guys, yeah, thanks for being here tonight. We appreciate that. Like Darryl, I submitted a question with the registration, which was fairly detailed, so it's not going to be read out. I'll have to try and remember it all. Leading on from what you've just said, plenty of us have been to these forums before, heard the stuff, plenty of promises being made, so you've talked about trust a lot already. Part of my question was, what confidence can we have that things are going to be different? We've had so many financial issues, which has meant that particularly the players and staff have been disadvantaged. The number of different grounds these guys have had to move around to for training. We still don't have a home base. We've had situations with players not being paid. We've had situations with the women's team, having to wash their own stuff and not having change, So yes, you've got lots of legacy stuff to deal with, and I'm hearing the right things, but what confidence are we going to have that you guys are going to, particularly first of all, look after the players and the staff so that they know that they're part of a family that's going to look after them, and that will then give strength to the way the club performs.
Great question.
I'll start, and Zach
thank
can
you.
follow.
Great cracking jacket as well. That must be year 1 or 2, or fantastic.
That was when.
Fantastic. Yeah, fantastic.
We should bring that one back.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Great question, and it needs to be answered in the right way. And there is a difference that Zach and I will bring. There is a difference. The first thing is that before we even started, there isn't a person or a book or a Google post that you can read that's going to tell you how to run a club. You need to have smelt it, felt it, been in the change rooms. You need to know what it feels like to walk out into a pitch, to understand what it means to wear a shirt. There's blood, sweat and tears that players go through. The young boys and girls that aspire to make it. I was one of them. Zach's another one. But this is a journey to get to this point, not by reading a book, not by reading an Alex Ferguson leadership book and then finding your way here. This is the first thing that concerned me is player welfare. And we've come out early on and made significant steps to address issues, as hard as they may be, but we've done that. Now, the first issue that we face is how do our men's team not have a training base? It is 101 football, right? Now, I don't care what happened in the past. All of our teams, not just men's, women's, youth, they need to have the best facilities possible. It's a non-negotiable fact of the matter. Another great step is, I think, we have to be playing in Brisbane. So coming back to Suncorp, potentially playing some games at Ballymore with a bit more of a strategy that we want to explain a bit later. That's to come. But these situations, from day 1 or day -10 before we even got in, we're talking to people that we know, trying to reconnect with broken relationships with people that want to help, that just haven't or have lost connection in the past. So we're confident and we're working day and night to resolve those issues. Yes, do we have some challenges? Sure. Are we going to blame the past? No. But we got to resolve these things. because I know what it's like. You can't live out of a suitcase as a player. I can't look a player in the eye and say, go perform for me in the Australia Cup on Monday night when I haven't given them the best opportunity. So that's something that we have to fix. We're onto it, and when we will not accept another season of 10, 12, 13 training venues. It's not possible for this club. So, number one. Number two, the biggest difference is Zach and I, at the right time, will be appointed and will accept the office as directors of the club. Never in the past has a CEO of this club been a director. What does that change? This opens yourself up to personal liability. I'll leave it there.
No, I think Kaz has touched on the main 2 points, but the confidence will come in the results that you see. And it won't come from fan forums every month, us coming up here and talking the talk. It will come from seeing Mac and Kai training in a full-time facility, seeing our women training in a full-time facility, seeing the values and the culture change, seeing the smiles on the young boys and girls going to games, seeing you all, I'm sure, coming to these fan forums with more honey than vinegar. And so for us moving forward, we are not afraid of the battle that we're going on. We would not have taken on this challenge if we didn't believe in ourselves. But I think that the confidence that you'll feel is the confidence that we have in ourselves to turn this around. Rob, sorry, Rob. I've got to be kind.
Give Neil a go.
I just wanted to congratulate you guys on
Thanks,
on that signing.
Thank you.
Not only for the work you've done day -10 and right through to now, but for this great signing, I believe that you've got for an attacking midfielder. That's terrific. I understand it wasn't just something that he wanted to come to Queensland for the sunshine or something.
That's
There
true.
was more to it than that.
That was a bit
believe,
Tell me the details.
My spies told me that it was a hard-fought effort.
You got some good
to
spies.
get him here. I'm just wondering whether you might be able to just elaborate on the part that you guys had to play.
Thanks, mate. All right, so let's go into a little bit of detail about this recruitment. So Florine is our first signing, I guess, after Joe Coletti, after Tommy Waddingham. Now, the important part about Tommy Waddingham is that he is the focus for us in terms of our DNA, of a Queensland talent that's come through, right? Now, we're touching on Joey Coletti. Joey Coletti was a player that Ross identified day one to us as a key player that he needed in a few key positions. And as management, we wanted to empower Ross with that decision. Moving on to Florine. Florine is a player that Kaz and I have watched over the last couple of years, and we heard approximately maybe 4 days ago now, that there were some issues at City. So, as the new management team, we got on the phone and we had a conversation, just like we're having a conversation with you now. And listen, at the end of the day, Mac and Kyle will tell you they're human beings. What they want is they want to just have a chat, understand that people care about them, understand that they want to have a conversation, that they know that they can bring their kids to Brisbane, that we're going to pick them up from the airport, that we're going to give them everything that they need as a human being before they are as a player. So Kaz and I had many chats with Florine. He had other offers and other interests from other clubs, as he should, as any player of his quality would, but he was very, very keen to stay in Australia. So it was a difficult couple of days in terms of long nights to speak to his agent, to speak to Florine, but the guy is an absolute gentleman. He is everything that Kaz and I believe in as a person, that we want our young youth to be subjected to. He is someone that will bring a huge amount of quality to our playing group on and off the park. And I guess in the last 24 hours, through more conversations, we were able to get a deal done. So we're extremely happy to bring Florine to Brisbane. We're excited to bring him here for 2 years. But yeah, he'll arrive next week after the boys get back from Newcastle, and he'll get straight to work.
Are you not playing for Newcastle?
No, I look, we'd love for that to happen, but you know, there's a lot of protocol that a player needs to go through, and as Zach said, we've been there. We're all humans, and there's that human touch. So we want to make sure that his family's right, that he spends time with his kids, and he comes with a fresh mind, and he comes into Brisbane. He's well looked after, and he becomes part of the family straight away. So he won't be featuring in the Australia Cup game, and look, we're happy to say it in front of, you know, we've got a live stream, and that's fine because we want to be authentic, and there's no games to be played here anymore with Brisbane because we back the team that's going there. We got Kai, we got Acklin here, we got such a good squad, and Floren's going to obviously add something there, but everyone is vying for a spot. I can tell you right now, if there's 15, 16-year-old that's pushing Floren off, he better be playing. And I'll be saying that to Ross. There's no favouritism. You're going to earn your spot. And that's what we want. We want that culture in the team. So I know Floren's going to be a great asset, but every player we've got, if they do the business, we need the best players playing out on the pitch.
Rob?
Big brick wall that's been existing for the last 30, 40 years ever since the Brisbane team have been in the big league is the media. How on earth are you ever going to get proper coverage from the rag Korea Mail and also from the TV stations? What you get, as we all know, is pathetic. It's just not the thing. So you're inundated every bloody week, every day, rugby league, Brisbane Lions,
Sure.
all that bullshit.
Sure.
And yet there's uproar about what might be happening at Brisbane Roar.
Yep.
Absolutely not. How on earth are you going to get that through and get our real coverage, which we should have?
Can I just say something about that? I've just spent 10 weeks in Tassie. And every night on the TV, they have something about football. They have AFL, but they also have the real football on there as well. Every night, a story about a local club or whatever, and we get none of that here. What station is that?
The relationship with the media is obviously very, very important, and Kaz and I have relationships with all of the Queensland journos. What they write is their opinion, and we can't control what they write, but what we can control is what we're doing day to day and what we're focusing on to rebuild the club and to push the club forward. Now, in regards to the story and trying to, I guess, get more coverage of what we're doing, I think that strategically, as we build this story, like this narrative about this club that's going through this journey, we will, I guess, get a little creative now. We've got some pretty exciting announcements next week in regards to what we want to do as a brand, how we want to get more creative, how we want to shine the spotlight more on our young Queensland talent. And that is not to say that we don't want to, shine the spotlight on Tommy and Jay and our amazing visa players, but it's actually about a connection to the Queensland community. It's about storytelling. It's about.
How do you do that if they won't say anything, give you scant regard?
It's not, that's just not a raw problem.
I know that probably throughout Australia.
The interesting part about it is with the Women's World Cup, all of a sudden there's lots of coverage. Why? Because we got a chance of winning. We have a chance of
There's only
winning.
one team in it as far as the Australian league is concerned. Damn all our teams involved. Of course there is. It's totally ridiculous.
Yeah, but there is only one team that's going.
Too right.
But seriously, look, I think, having spoken to Marco about why he hasn't been putting stuff, he puts it in. It's the editors that aren't putting it in.
I know that. I think he's quite a good writer, actually.
Yeah, and the problem is, while it's owned by News Limited, we're not going to get that coverage. However, we can get it through other sources, like the radio and other newspapers, the local newspapers in particular.
Sure.
Not through the
But
correspondence.
you need it on the TV as well.
Yeah.
You need that
Well,
just 2 minutes or 1 minute even
Yeah.
a night.
Yeah, but
And
need-
instead of what Alfie Lang and Betty shot.
You don't need inside writing. Talk to James Locke.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not a bad shout. Lofty.
See, the one thing they do with Tassie, and like harking back to it, the they do a report on players, injuries, whatever. They cover everything.
We need that up there. We need people
Similar
to know,
to-
so they are aware of what's happening.
Rob, I think one thing we will say is that you'll see a lot more communication from the club. Okay, I think that I know, but in terms of our digital strategy, in terms of our channels, in terms of what we can promote, we can't necessarily control what News Corp do, right? What we can is we can have the relationship. We've got a great relationship like with Marco. We've got a great relationship with David Lewis and other journalists, and they've got their own professional careers and their own story to tell. But what we can do is we can get more creative with what we do, and I think that's all we can really control.
How would you say get creative?
Get more creative with our own digital strategies, with our own opportunity.
If you, and this is an evolution story now.
Yeah.
If we look at some of the biggest sports that have evolved, and I'll make some examples. The Formula One was a basket case, right? And it was sold and it was picked up and no one knew anything. No one knew who a driver was. No one knew a thing about it. What they did was they changed their strategy because they weren't getting traditional coverage. They weren't getting the spotlight on them. And they went and they told their story. And that doesn't mean that that's any less than a Courier Mail. But now these guys went through to Netflix. This is worldwide coverage now. What we need to do is, we can't always just sit there and wait for Courier Mail. We have to create the story. Because the traditional media will pick up wherever they're going to get the most clicks.
Yep.
That's the truth. Now, if we're just sitting back and we're not creating the narrative, no one's going to care. So it's on us now to make sure that we are creating the story.
And have you got some sort of plan design that, oh, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that, we're going to try this?
It's
coming.
already coming. So we have to attack new media, which is digital, it's online, it's instant. We're live streaming tonight.
I see, that's a lot, I didn't even know that.
Well, this is maybe Rob, maybe we need to communicate that in different channels, and I agree with you, and we'll work on that as well. But we're live right now, and this is something that.
And how do you get onto that then?
So these are the new digital platforms. Which what we'll do is we need to communicate where these are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So
that's on us to communicate better.
So we'll work through that. But what I can say is right now, there's hundreds and hundreds of people that are watching this right now, and that's 200 or 300 more people than would have seen it last Fan Forum.
Right, yes, yes.
So we're starting that journey. We're going to create the story, and we're going to get into new media, new digital, new age media. And I can tell you one thing, traditional are going to want the story. It might be too late for them, but we also support the way that the APL is going, because the APL is investing heavily, and we're part of the APL. They're investing heavily in their own platform in Keeper, and we're a part of that. So we're working with APL, with football in this country to take things forward. Matilda's a great example of what's possible.
Documentary was on Disney, wasn't it?
Disney Plus,
Yeah. So we want that. We want the raw, all access behind the scenes. I want to take you, Rob, into the dressing room. I want you to know more than what Courier Mail can give you.
That won't take much.
So we're on it. We're on it.
Thanks, mate. Good to see you.
So that's one of the big issues that I've had too over the whole life of this club, and communication is part of it, media is a part of it, but I think the whole PR and promotion side of it has been so lacking. You know, I want to drive around the city and see big posters of, of raw players, of the raw signage up, so that it's a constant reminder. That sort of level of publicity. I know it's about money, you've got to balance the books, but to me that's part of making Brisbane more, town, so that people are constantly reminded about it, and the games coming up and what other events are going on. Wally knows because I harp on all the time. I'm not on social media.
Yep.
So I rely on emails. And
Sure.
the number of times that I don't get an email with some news that's been on Facebook, you know.
That's good feedback.
That's a really big connection for a lot of people
Yep.
that, you know, don't want to be on Facebook.
Sure.
Only the old parts.
That's right, yeah. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm on the
You want to answer that, Shawnee?
I think we'll get Sean to answer because he's all over that. But on the traditional media, and I call it traditional with respect because it is. But we do have a billboard strategy. We've got a radio strategy. We've got a newspaper strategy. But what I've told the team is, rather than just, and I said it to the advisory council before, what the club's done before is just sort of thrown it out there, gone on any billboard, let's see what happens. What I've said is we need to be smarter. We need to know who are our members, where are our members coming from, who is it? There's no point having a billboard where none of our members are, where none of our fans are looking. So that's the first step for the club. Understand who we're dealing with here. Who are our fans? And when the season starts to approach, we will have that. We've got spend on billboards, we've got spend on radio this year, but we want to make sure that it's effective and it goes to the right audience. And that's what we're working on.
Billboards, buses, radio.
Buses as well.
Good.
I'd like to just change the subject slightly and talk about memberships. I was very heartened, of course, when it was announced late last year that we'd be bringing the Roar back to Brisbane, where it should be all the time. The fact that we've got to play some games at Ballymore, and now with St Paul McCartney coming on the 1st of November, that's probably going to affect another game as well, unless the APL are able to adjust their draw to counteract it. But I also look at the membership fees of the other main league clubs around, and we have got one of the best price packages of any club with a stadium our size. Last year I think I paid something like $190 for a membership for Redcliffe. This year it's going to cost me $230. But the amount of money I'm saving, because I live in Ipswich, the amount of money that I'm saving in tolls and petrol will more than make up for the extra money that I'm having to pay. The problem I've got with the memberships is that when the memberships were first announced, you're only opening the Western Grandstand, which is for the Platinum and Black members. Don't have a problem with that. The problem I have is with the Orange members, which is one I'm going to have. Now, you've decided that you're going to have them at the northern end of the ground. Now, there's two problems with that. Problem number one is everybody arrives at the stadium at the southern end of the ground where the bus and the train is. So that means they're all going to have to walk round. Now, I take a guy to the football who's 89 years of age. Now, by the time he gets round to his seat at the northern end, the game will be finished and the players will be running around doing their warm-up. The other problem is that we're sat right beside the den, and not a lot of people, I don't know if there's any den members here, and I don't want to decry them, but not everybody wants to sit beside the den. And I've spoken to the club at length about this, and various people, and the reason why I get told that you're having it at the northern end is because it's cheaper than it is at the southern end. To which I say, bullshit, excuse then the frank language. It's done to appease the den. Now let me point out to you, the den themselves have given the middle finger to the club on numerous occasions when it suited them. And now I believe that the club should be giving them the middle finger and saying, well, if you don't like it, disband, because in the end, at the present moment, the den's a basket case. You know, I think the stone has rolled over the exit to the den and nobody's getting out. I mean, there was one game we played at KO last year on a Tuesday night, there was no den there at all, not even one. So the question I wanted to ask, and was one that I emailed through, is are you going to look at opening the southern end? I know, and I understand why you're only opening parts of the stadium, because it's cost, and I fully understand that, I don't have a problem with that. But to open up the northern end, as opposed to the southern end, and then to use the den or the Royal Alfred Hotel as the excuse, because
you know, the amount of people that are in the den or will be going to the Lord Alfred, in comparison to those that will be arriving coming, you know, to Sutherland, is minuscule. And it really does, I think, need looking at.
Yeah.
And if the den don't like it,
Yeah.
well, tell them to go and
No, well, it's great feedback. I think that the first thing I'll say is not giving the middle finger to anyone, because we get everyone in that stadium, as you know, right? But it's great feedback, right? And I think that we work very, very hard internally from our membership, marketing, commercial, football department to get this right. And I know that we've just solved an issue tonight with Rob, who was trying to get a seat, which he couldn't. He was having issues before. Everything that we do, we don't try and pretend like we're perfect, right? We will take all the feedback on board, we'll sit down on Monday and we'll go through it. But I think that strategically the team has come to us with a plan of how we can get back to Suncorp. Because, as Kay said before, we're a Brisbane team, we have to work, train, play in Brisbane. Our focus was to get back to Brisbane. The transition back to Brisbane is not going to be perfect, there's going to be a few bumps. But to your point, we will work to make sure that every member, Rob came to us tonight and said, I want. And so we went over to the membership, went over to see Frankie, and we sorted it out. Now, with your situation, I understand that coming from the southern end with an 89-year-old is not easy. So let's work through it together. We're a community club. We're not here to make your life any more difficult to watch a game of football. We're here to make your life easier. So we will work, as and I, if we have to, person by person, to work through your issues. But the focus for us is just to be honest with you and say, we haven't got it perfectly right, but the main focus for us is to get back to Suncorp and to put on a proper event. Put on a product that it cannot be missed on a Friday and Saturday night. It needs to be the best show in town. And that for us is a real focus moving forward. Molly?
I'm going to change it.
Yep.
Change the topic somewhat. I think one of the things that we've lacked in the past and probably still do lack is connection with the state government. That's been a real, I think, hole. And I think that I don't think even on your board of advice there's any government members on there. Are you doing anything in relation to getting a better relationship with government, particularly from the point of view of funding?
Yeah. Good question, Molly.
Great question, and definitely it's on our radar. And I think the first thing we need to do, as much as it's very important for us to have a relationship with state government, it definitely will be. I think there's also a bigger picture in terms of football getting funding from the state government. Not just, we're not talking about the Raw, but we're talking about football in Queensland. And we want to be a part of that conversation, and we want to assist any way that we can to ensure that state government is seriously looking at infrastructure, is looking at how they can invest in women's sport, how they can invest in youth development. And there's a whole array of aspects that we have got on the agenda. Zach and I haven't got to that yet, because what we want to do is get Raw right first. Because without getting everything right in our own backyard, it's really hard for us to go to state government and say, hey, look at this. You know, we need funding, we need to get our backyard right first, and that's what we're doing. But what we can say is that, yes, we've already had discussions with multiple stakeholders who are in a better position than the RORA, who are talking to state government. And what we want to do is, we want to be a part of that. So we've said that clearly, that we need to be a part of this conversation. But our view is that the conversation needs to be about investing into football in Queensland as a whole.
Have you got an associate or a relationship with Football Queensland?
100%. 100%. We have made it a priority, and Rob Cavalucci's been extremely supportive of both Zach and myself, and I think Zach was just speaking to him prior to this as well. Rob is extremely important, Football Queensland is extremely important. We spoke with Gabor yesterday, who's the TD there. We have an open dialogue once again. We have a bonded relationship, and we want to integrate with Football Queensland, not cross paths or look at.
one of the mandates for Football Queensland is to develop some infrastructure and to actually get an elite facility in Queensland. Now, everyone in this room knows that our boys and girls are paying way too much to play football in the state and nationally, right? And the conversation with Rob is, how do we reduce those fees and how do we start getting better infrastructure, not just for the elite level, but for every level, right? And I think Kaz and I share our views, our own personal views on how each state should actually look in actually having its own state facility. But to your point, Wally, we need to work with Rob. We need to work closely with Rob to go together as a united front to government to say, hey, we are the most participated sport in the nation, in the state. We need more funds to develop better talent, to provide better pathways, and if we can be a part of that process, just like we said, an integrated part of that process so that we can benefit at some point to be an important part of that pathway, then hopefully we can help Rob and his team to kind of bring it all together.
Is there any chance of being involved in the new Football Queensland Brisbane City Council facilities to designing the
At Ipswich? Where's that? So, as Kaz said, our conversation with Rob at the moment had been initially to amend the relationship between Raw and Football Queensland. Now, thankfully, we've got a great relationship with Rob, so that was quite an easy conversation once we picked up the phone. Well, actually, I'll give them the credit, they picked up the phone to us. In the first few days, I won't take credit there, Gabor actually called me on that third day, and I apologise because I'd just been swamped with work. But after Kaz and I sat down with Gabor and Rob and we had the conversation, it was very clear that we were aligned. Not only in our values, but what we wanted to do for the game in Queensland. And there's a bigger purpose here. Yes, we're a football club. Yes, we're a professional team and organisation that need to become sustainable and to push to win championships. But we're actually here for a bigger purpose as well. We're actually here to be an integrated part of the process, to be, I guess, a cog in the wheel. And FQ's mandate is infrastructure, but it's also to get young boys and girls into national teams. So we want to see 15, 16, 17-year-old boys who are coming through Brisbane Roar getting exposure to national teams. So to your question around certain facilities, I think we can all agree in the next, say, 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a lot of work being done in Brisbane and Queensland. We've seen money being spent at Ballymore with Queensland Rugby Union. I think that for Kaz and I, we are very aligned with Rob in making sure that we work closely with Rob in pushing the agenda in Queensland to get more money back into football.
There was a report yesterday about the place at Nudgee.
Okay.
With the Football Queensland and the Brisbane City Council.
Okay.
$35 million or something.
Okay. No, we're not a part of those initial conversations, but what we are a part of is supporting Rob. Yeah, we haven't been a part of those conversations with that particular project, but Rob knows that we're 100% behind him to go and lobby government to make sure that we can really push the agenda forward in Queensland. Sorry, Rod.
Rod Goldsworthy, Secretary of the Law Supporters Federation. Just go back to an earlier topic we started on tonight about the backers ownership, the amount of money they've put in over the years. We've seen a lot of wild stuff come out on social media about the budgets being slashed. I saw someone write the budgets being slashed in half and all that sort of stuff. Can you guys really just clarify it for everybody so we know where we are this season?
Thanks, Rod.
Thanks.
Kaz, just grab that mic off there. Let him go. Let him go. Kaz is in charge of the budgets this year.
This is my favourite topic. So you've given me the platform, and I will.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks for setting it up. Thanks, mate.
I'm trying to think of the best way to say this that's respectful. The question I would ask back is, how have I slashed the budget by 50% if there wasn't ever a budget? So that's my answer. What I've said across the board to our advisory council, to the RSF, to fans, to everyone, is that there's always going to be, it's part of being in football. There's always going to be commentary. There's going to be, it's a great story. new CEO's come in, he's slashed it all in half, and he's killing the club. It's a nice headliner and plenty of clicks and people read it. But the reality is, since day one, I've spent every waking hour and sleeping hour actually coming up with a very, very structured financial position for the club, and that includes how we project the club moving forward. And what I can say is that after performing our analysis and looking at where the budget is for this season, we're definitely not slashing anything, so we're not cutting costs across the board. It was very hard to come up with, you know, let's say a comparative analysis here, because we didn't have anything to work with. So what we had to do was do our own due diligence, which we've done, to come up with a sustainable budget for the club that allows us to be extremely competitive and allows us to grow into the future. So what we're looking at is how can we open up new revenue line items for the club, which hasn't been done before, and how can we improve on revenue across the board, and where can we adjust our being spent in the right areas. So an example of that is, the example is we may need to make sacrifices on, you know, a 6-figure billboard to ensure that our men's team have a training base. This is just a simple example of being realistic. That's potentially a juggling aspect, but not slashing. It doesn't mean we won't do the billboard, buses and traditional media, but we got to get the priority expenses in line first, and that's what we're doing. So an example of making a great signing this week with Florin coming in, if I had slashed the budget by 50%, we would never get a player of that calibre. But we're doing it now with a very thoughtful process. We're doing it with diligence, and as I said before, the big difference is that we will be taking the office of directors of the club, so we're taking it very, very seriously. Every single expense is calculated, and that has been lacking historically. So I didn't really have a basis to work with, and we've had to work extremely hard to build modelling for the club in a financial aspect.
So, Rob?
So are you mean to tell us that when you lads arrived, you had sort of no budget, no idea, nothing there to build on, or anything in front of you that we can do this, we can do that, everything was just blank?
Yeah, this won't be a quick answer for you, Rob, but to be candid, no. We started 4 weeks ago, and we got started with what we got told was the budget, but very quickly we realised that a lot of the assumptions were wildly incorrect. And so Kaz and I spent, like he said, hours going through line by line to understand and appreciate what we were dealing with here. And as Kaz has mentioned, and we've gone over, there's been a lot of legacy issues which stem back to a lot of financial mismanagement.
How far back though? You understand, man, you can make any comment? I mean, seriously, are we talking about the last 5 years, the last 10 years?
This is probably a problem that's, I can't be accurate and say 3 to 5 years, but I think Kaz and I have gone back probably the last 12 to 24 months to really assess the situation and understand what's going on before us so we can understand what we need to fix. So the most important thing for us is to understand and have some visibility around what is our cash flow and what is our budget, so we stick to it. So that when Sean comes to me and wants to spend XYZ on billboards and buses, we know that it's within the budget.
Even can of spray paint?
Potentially.
One of the things that I recall from previous times was that the break-even point for Suncorp was supposed to be 15,000 fans sitting.
Yeah, I remember hearing that as well, Wally.
Yeah. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, it's not true today. No. With our current commercial deal, it depends. To be frank with you, it's we've worked very hard to get back to Suncorp, and so we've obviously had to make the deal work for us. Yeah. But the most important thing for us is to actually put on a great product, and we believe that if we get it right in terms of our marketing, our communication over the next 3 or 4 months, and we can really drive a stronger supporter base into Suncorp, we won't be worrying about breaking even. We'll be worrying about putting on a great show.
Because the next point I want to make on that is I don't think the club has made enough use of some of the big signings, particularly the South American signings, to get the South American community involved, Japanese.
Yeah, good points.
Spanish. The Spanish.
Yep.
Where we've had players coming from overseas, we've never really focused on getting that.
100%. No, 100% agree. This goes back to what we were speaking about before in terms of our digital and actually understanding the audiences, right? But I think the point I'll make, Wally, is yes, we need to capitalise on their supporter base, but the big shift in focus for us, and this is something that I really want to dive deep into this live stream fan forum tonight, is we really need to start shining the spotlight on what we have here in Australia, what we have here in Queensland, putting our young youth on a pedestal, because they have just as much of a fan supporter base, if we all get behind them, than the South Americans and the Japanese and the Chinese do it coming overseas. But that's not to say, notwithstanding that, very strategically, we need to do more with the players that come from overseas, because Florian's got an amazing, supporter base. Other players that have come before have had great supporter bases, and we can do a lot more digitally. But I just want to make that point in regards to our DNA and a vision moving forward is to shine less of a spotlight on players that come here for 6 months, and more of a spotlight on the players that are the bedrock and the foundation of our club moving forward.
Absolutely.
Cheers, mate. I should be going to you.
I want to change the direction just a little bit. One of the refreshing things, certainly over the last few months, has been the bringing back or the instituting of an advisory council. You've had your first meeting. I was just wondering if you have any reflections on the mix of people on that council, and any responses to what you heard from that council meeting, and how you're feeling about that.
Can I just add, we'd like to hear too what that advisory council is going to be doing, what notice you're going to take on them.
Thank you. Thanks, Neil.
First and foremost, it's extremely important, and the reason, I'm not going to be hesitant in explaining our position on it, but we're also respect that the advisory council members are still working through the position that they would like this council to sit in, because I think it's important that we can have a view as a club, but what we need to ensure is that there is an independent and arm's length position between the council, the fans, members, and the club, and that's because we need to ensure that this advisory council is able to be objective, is able to come to us and give us the bad news as well, and say, hey, hold on, you guys aren't doing this right, because we need to be held accountable as well. So my proposition to formulate this advisory council was to do it in a formal setting. We don't just want it to be a token gesture and a tick box exercise. Now, how does that look? We're not there yet. We had our first meeting, and one of the propositions that I made to all the members was that I think we need to go away, and you each need to go away individually and work out how you would like this to be constituted, because I want it to be formal. I want there to be minutes. I want there to be a strategy here, and I want the club to be in a position that we do listen to the motions that are put to us. Now, whether we can execute on all of them, that's a different story. But I think it's important that there is an independence there, and I think it's important that there's an arm's length so that fans can be heard in a proper manner. Because I would hate to think that if it's completely instigated or instituted by the club itself, it may lose its independence to some extent. Or credibility. So that would be our position. But where are we today with that? We're still working through that composition.
Just to be clear, it was just an introductory advisory meeting. It was the first kind of get together, but there was minutes taken. Everyone, Kaz and I actually came a little bit later so that the advisory council members could get to know each other first and have a bit of a conversation, get to know each other, and then Kaz and I joined just to introduce ourselves. I guess, like Kaz said, stamp a little bit more of a bit of a formal process on how we think the advisory council, from our opinion, should move forward. And now that I think that we've gone through that process and the minutes have been taken, we'll come back in a couple of months' time and understand together how you guys, the advisory council, want to move forward.
How do you feel about the mix?
Yeah.
I don't know, did you comment on the mix?
No, I didn't comment on the mix. So,
of skills.
From my subjective opinion, it was a fantastic mix of not only die-hard, passionate Raw supporters, but independent, professional skills and professional services that each individual brought, unique experiences. We had, from what I could see, accountants, lawyers, marketing experts, a couple of lawyers, too many lawyers.
Too many.
But each individual brought not only their own passion for the Raw, but their own skill set, which is very, very important from an objectivity perspective. But for me, the key takeaway going back to that point was really the conversation around what does it mean to rebuild. I think that it's something that gets thrown around this league a lot about what does a rebuild really mean. And I think that Kaz and I took a great deal of positivity in terms of going away and really thinking about how we can articulate that and really put together a bit of a formal document around from a CEO's perspective, and I'll support Kaz in this. What does it mean to now really go through this process so that everyone who reads the document can really understand what we mean by this rebuild? So I think for me personally, Kaz, that was the most telling thing, really breaking it down, not just saying words for the sake of saying words, but actually coming back and really diving a little bit deeper into the detail.
Was there only one person from the den there? From the den? Was there only the one person from the den there?
There's two. Two from the den.
There's two on there. Yeah.
Two from the den, and there was two from the RSF.
Two from the RSF,
Yeah.
and two from the Raw Corps.
Two from the Raw Corps.
No, I just asked, originally when it was floated, the idea was that each club was going to have an advisory council, and there would be somebody from the local advisory council go on to a national board, national council. Have you heard any more about that, or is that still a goer? Or?
I think that's definitely still in the making. The last update that I got from the CEO's update with the APL was that we've sort of listed out all the clubs and where everyone sat with their respective advisory councils, and where Brisbane Roar as a club is quite advanced in.
I've been watching the others that we're so far ahead of.
Yeah, in our process. So that's something that Zach and I and the club as a whole are proud of.
Yeah.
But as much as I said, we don't want this to just be a tick box exercise. So that's why, for me, it's really important that it becomes formal and that we formalise how it's constituted and how it's conducted. So it's not just a meet and greet and sort of have a chat and then we all head off. I think it needs to maintain its independence in its objects. It needs to hold us accountable as management, and I think it's important that it has a seat at a national advisory council board, because I think the league needs it to be held accountable as much as the clubs need to be.
I think it's fair to say also that Brisbane Roar definitely don't like any of the Sydney clubs or the Melbourne clubs. and they take up the majority of the A-League, that's unfortunately, and they are the most powerful and also the richest clubs. So we've got to really behind the eight ball, and with the current demise of Perth and Tony Sage leaving, I'm scared of the national competition being focused on southern states as they always do. We need to be stronger from the point of view of competitiveness.
No, 100%.
To have a bigger say in what's happening.
Yep, 100%.
Just a clarifying question, you might clarify whether the Raws Advisory Council will have its own separate life and separate continued existence no matter what goes on at APL level. Is that right?
Certainly, that's a non-negotiable for us as a club.
Yeah.
No, that's a non-negotiable. So I think that's clear. But it's important that everyone knows that for us, as far as we're concerned, irrespective of what happens at a national level, it's important for us to have this constituted properly for the club as a whole. And I think it should be continual, and there should be a formal process as to how members are elected and so forth. But that's something to work through. The way that I can answer this question is that in our discussions with the APL, they need Brisbane Roar to be successful. The league needs Brisbane Roar to be successful. So we play a huge part in this, and we have their full support to ensure that Brisbane Roar is successful. They need this club to get back to where it was.
Because, look, I mean, some of the comments that have been made by lots of people on social media is the fact that Melbourne City have got same salary as levels that we've got, and yet they've got the better players. You know, why aren't we getting the sort of players? But it's not the case at all, I don't believe.
No.
And it's always the age-old, you know, well, they must be paying them under the table, all of those sorts of issues to get those sorts of quality players to come. You know, all crap. But unfortunately, that's what Brisbane has been faced with ever since Royce left. You know, and we keep hearing about let's bring in another Royce, which is never going to happen.
I'll challenge you on that. Exactly right. No, I'll challenge you.
I'll challenge you on
find
that. We will find the next Royce, and sooner than you think. But what I can say is all I can speak of is the action, and I can only reflect on our last signing with Florin. And Florin has an extremely high pedigree and is a player that was wanted by multiple clubs, not just overseas but in the A-League.
Who had more money than us.
And so what I can say there is that it's one example of it's not always about there's so many factors that come into it, and obviously financial factors are extremely important to a player in their career. But the club has to sell Brisbane, has to sell the city, it has to sell the vision, it has to sell what do we stand for as a club. And so we were successful in this with Florin because we understand what players are looking for, and a lot of players are motivated not only by money but by the bigger vision. So I would say that as we progress, what the fans can be assured is that we're now putting our best foot forward and selling this great city to all sorts of, and I can tell you right now, there's plenty of players that once we get our feet right, once we get back on track, I can tell you right now, many players will want to be at Brisbane Roar.
See, but back to players, is Florin a visa player?
Yes.
And are we still looking for another visa player?
We're looking for a visa number 9.
Yeah, that's good because.
You know someone, John.
Well, no. It's just a,
No, to answer your question.
Misconception on
sure.
Facebook and social media.
Yeah.
A horrible place where they say, oh, well, we've now signed another visa player, and according to Marco, we're only signing one more visa player, and now we're not going to get any more. So we need that cut down now. So.
Every time that I see you, you always tell me that it's wrong on Facebook. You keep going back there.
No, because you spend 3 hours. No, you told me you spent 3 hours answering questions.
Yeah. No, I know that I know you're there to protect us, and we're grateful. But
only when you deserve it.
Yeah. Appreciate
Thank you.
it. But yeah, I mean, it's the first time I've heard Marco's doing signings, so yeah. I don't. But no, but in all seriousness, yes, we're day and night looking for the right type of person, the right type of player, the type of player that Ross wants, that will play in our system. But as I said, once again, I need to reiterate this. Every single player that we have is hungry, is wanting to win. I've spoken to the players, men and women. We want our A-League women's side to be successful. I want to win, and we'll be at the games. I'll tell you right now, if our A-League women's team isn't performing, if our youth team isn't performing, we're going to be the first that aren't going to be happy. I'll tell you right now. So no, this is the Visa 9 is important. The women's team's important to us. There's not a player that will come through here in all different sectors that won't be important to Zach and I, and they need to fit that mould and be that right human being.
Molly?
Can I just make a suggestion, Sean? Can you put out there that Katrina and Claire and Hayley were ex-Raw players and wish them good luck for tomorrow night? I don't think many people know that.
I want to raise another little curly question, which you may not be able to answer yet because you haven't had long to kick your feet under the table. As you know, the Roar have had a very, very checkered past with facilities that have been built for us by various governmental organisations. Logan City Council built an $8 million facility down there at Browns Plains.
Yep.
And we shot ourselves in the foot over that, over a bill of about $150,000. We moved down to Carrara, and I believe we got ourselves into a bit of strife down there. And now I believe we could be in a bit of strife with Morton Bay Regional Council, because they're building or upgrading the facilities at the South Pine Sports Complex, because they were given a commitment that the Roar women were going to be playing there and the academy was going to be going out there. Well, the academy has since disappeared, and the women have now indicated that they're going to Ballymore. So what is happening with that facility out there in Morton Bay?
Okay.
And the South Pine Sports Complex.
Thanks for bringing up these points. I think let's go one by one, okay? The first thing that I'll mention is, one of the things that Kaz brought up the other night is, if you hear any of these points, and Kaz and I are happy to give you our numbers personally, call us before making assumptions about, I'm not just saying yourself, but any of these points, call us, speak to Sean, contact us, we'll clarify every single point, because the problem with a lot of these issues, they swirl around on social media and no one actually gets to the bottom of it. Yeah. Brendale was never planned to be an A-League men's training venue. That was something that was communicated poorly in the past, that Kaz and I came to understand on our day one, which we communicated with our A-League men's very quickly, that it was never intended to be an A-League men's facility. It was always intended to be an A-League women's facility, potentially with the academy with them at Brendale. Now, our conversations with the Moreton Bay Regional Council are fantastic. They've been unbelievable in the last couple of weeks, whilst Kaz and I are getting up to speed with the conversations, and the conversation is ongoing. At the moment, the facility is not quite ready. There is some goalposts being changed, with the actual field being ready for our A-League women's this year. So when we started the conversations 3 weeks ago, it was probably around a November start for the women's to move in. At the moment, it probably looks like an early 2024 move. So again, for us, we don't want band-aid solutions. So what we've said to our A-League women's and to Gareth, our head coach, it's probably best that we plan for the A-League women's season so we can actually plan 12 months ahead to just remain at QSAC if things change, and we can actually move the girls in full time to Brendale and we get it signed off. This is the other point I'd like to clarify. It is not yet signed off in terms of Brendale, but conversations are ongoing and we have a great relationship. But QSAC is the venue at the moment in regards to the A-League women's training. Before I move on to Kaz, the next question was in regards to Ballymore. What was the next? Sorry, I missed.
Yeah, well, that's right. The women are allegedly playing their games at Ballymore, and that was it. There was a press release there, which was done by the previous CEO, and he was there with the CEO of
Queen's Rugby.
Reds.
Did you want to say something about that?
And the Roar women were going to be playing there, and
yeah.
then this is when the potential rip with Morton
Okay.
regional
You want
councils
to go?
coming up. And of course, when the Roar, because the Roar initially signed, I believe, a 5-year contract to play their games at KO Stadium. Now, of course, the landscape there has changed with the NRL granting the Dolphins
Sure.
a license, so that changes their landscape.
I can tell you there's absolutely no 5-year agreement with Redcliffe, okay? So the current landscape is the men of the venue agreements signed off at Suncorp. We will play a couple of games from the A-League men's perspective at Ballymore.
Yeah.
From an A-League women's perspective, we are looking at Ballymore as well. But that doesn't affect our relationship with Brendale at all. There won't be games being played at Brendale because it's not a what's the word I'm looking here for in terms of the APL.
Yeah.
In regards to sanctions, yeah. For us to play at Ballymore at the moment, because of the lights situation, we have to play during the day. But it's the right facility in terms of the product because it is a boutique stadium. We feel it's the right stadium for the ladies. We are looking at other facilities potentially. We don't want in the past with the women's playing at AJ Kelly, again, we're not necessarily in Brisbane. We're a little bit too far away, so we want to bring the women back to Brisbane. So there is a conversation at the moment around other potential venues, but just to be clear, in regards to A-League Women's, we are focused at the moment on Ballymore, and we are focused on the women moving to Brendale. We just don't know exactly if that's going to be this year.
What, to eventually play games or just for training facilities?
At
Brendale.
Brendale. No, the focus is to train.
Yeah.
Full-time training facility for the women. Eventually, the plan is step by step to get the whole club to one venue. But as you are aware, with where we're currently at, it's a process. So we want to get our men and our women in a full-time facility, 12 months, 3 years, just get them into a full-time facility, but the longer-term plan is to have one club, one facility.
Any idea where?
This goes back to our conversation with FQ. This goes back to our bigger infrastructure question. This goes back to the relationships that we have with CAV and government. But this is the process that Kaz and I will go on now that we're very comfortable and confident that we've got the financial management under control in the direction of the football club. Because let's be honest, if Kaz and I came in and just focused on signing players, from day one, we would be in probably a lot more strife than we're currently in. So the focus for us in the first 4 weeks was to get that great understanding of the financial management of the football club, to understand the visibility of cash flow, to understand budgets. So now that we've been here for 4 weeks, we've got a very clear picture over the next 6 to 12 months. Now it's about getting each department within our football club humming so that we can now go away in the next 3 to 6 months, work closely with CAV to plan the future.
I mean, realistically, not a lot's going to happen in infrastructure with the Olympic Games coming on.
Yeah.
The game's not going to, do anything.
I mean, and that's the other disappointing thing too. This the Palaszczuk government has said that they're not going to give football any new facilities for the Olympic Games, and yet football is probably the biggest participant in the Olympic Games. I mean, they're going to build a facility for hockey, which I believe was initially talked to valuable, but football, which is the biggest draw card, and even FIFA was so concerned about the Olympic Games that they tried to, change the rules about qualification and what level of player can play and all the rest of it. So it's a very, very important part of the Olympics and will be to Brisbane as well. And now with the successful running of the World Cup, then, I think we deserve a better...
if the Women's World Cup does not change the Queensland government's view about football in Queensland, and Football Queensland and the clubs don't put heaps of pressure on the government to do something about it, then it will be a massive lost opportunity. This is the time that needs to strike to get the infrastructure.
I'll just respond to two things. Each of the relationships that Zach and I have either instituted or had the opportunity to be presented with to date, irrespective of what may be circulating in social media, we have not yet faced any negative relationship, whether that's with Moreton Bay City Council, whether that's with Football Queensland, whether that's with Queensland Rugby Union. We are open, transparent. We want to collaborate as much as possible, as long as it benefits Brisbane Roar and football. That's our mandate here. So, irrespective of what may have happened or occurred in the past, or what relationships may or may not have been broken, one thing I can say is we're open. We want to speak to everyone. We want to give everyone a new sense of inspiration, of vigour, of what we're about, and hopefully we can progress discussions. But as far as Moreton Bay City Council, they've been fantastic to us. I think we've had regular discussions. We're extremely briefed on the matter, and we want to ensure that we get the best outcomes for the club. For infrastructure, yes, it's a 3 to 5 year, 6 year journey here. And as I said, I want the club to be a part of that conversation, because football in Queensland needs the Roar to be successful. Brisbane Roar is the professional outcome. It is our professional club, and we have to be a part of that conversation. But also, we can't do it alone.
Okay, was it right that you organised to build a stadium in Wales, was it?
Yes, no, that was a part of my tenure as a GM of the club in Asia, in Laos, and I was a part of that process. And
so you've got experience.
Yeah, and one of those aspects there is that you have to ensure that your stadia is AFC regulated, and to ensure that it meets certain standards. And so that's an experience that I had overseas. I mean, we take it for granted to some extent here, because our stadiums are fantastic. All of our stadiums are fantastic. But having to deal with just the distance between the sideline to where you can sit, where you can put the dugouts, is factors that I had to deal with. You know, I've got the ruler out, and we're measuring those things. But that's the experience that I've had, and that we bring in. We've had conversations about stadia, about training facilities, about the future, which we're going to keep consistently having. And it's imperative that the club has a base, and that we have the best facilities. And when we go back to player recruitment as well, it's so important, because if we want to attract the best players, you know, you have to have the right facilities.
There's a few local fields that have been really done up since they've used as training grounds at the moment for some of the limits. So
Yeah, and
lots of opportunity. Have you spoken with anybody at the Strikers yet?
We have, and I'll let Zach speak about it a bit more. But these are also important relationships for us, because we're not here to impact the NPL clubs. We want to work with NPL clubs. They're a part of the process, and I believe that we don't necessarily compete. I think there's an opportunity for us to be integrated, and yes, we have spoken to the Strikers and other clubs. And a lot of these clubs are also vying for the NSD and the second leg at the moment. So, I mean, we're as supportive as anyone to ensure that Queensland is represented strongly. These are clubs with great history. So, yeah, this dialogue's ongoing for us.
I think Sean is giving us a little bit of a hard stop here. So one question I think we've got on live is that there's a few things floating around about just a bit more of an understanding of what's happening with the academy space. I know that previous to Kaz and I coming in, we did have an academy, and then it was pushed to the wayside. I think what Kaz and I want to talk about tonight in regards to the academy space is that it is an ongoing process at the moment of understanding how we want to move it forward with a few moving pieces. One of the most important moving pieces for Kaz and I to understand about the academy space is to understand if there's going to be a National Youth League coming back. This will impact our NPL team. This will impact how we look at bringing players through those younger age groups. I think that for us, the focus, if we are solely, our DNA is to really focus on nurturing and developing young talent, is this relationship with FQ. Now, FQ spend a huge amount of money in developing these players, so there's absolutely no reason for us to compete with NPL teams. There's no reason for us to compete with FQ. We need to be an integrated cog in the wheel with FQ, so that they
continue to develop their talent as they do on the women's side, and are doing a fantastic job, as we've just discussed, about the amount of women who are coming through Queensland football and playing for the Matildas. We need to get back that relationship with FQ so that we can bring through this generation of Queensland boys through their FQ academy, through the NPL system, and hopefully can funnel through to the Brisbane Roar. But that comes through a value add, that comes through relationships with the local clubs, that comes through not just taking the best talent, but actually working with FQ, working with local clubs, potentially with a commercial relationship. But in regards to the academy, the first step is to understand from a first team A-League men's perspective how we can get more talent coming through. And at the moment, the answer is that it's a little bit of a wait and see to understand how it's going to unfold with the NYL. But the one thing I will say is it will be restructured, it will be changed, and it will be a more integrated process with FQ.
I've got a couple of questions that I think are important for the fans to know, and which I've had feedback about. One of them might be a difficult one, and that is, what are your views? And I don't necessarily say I share the feedback that I've been given, but there is a very strong feeling anti giving Sydney the grand finals for a number of years. That's number one. Number two, I think it'd be really good for the fans to hear about your resourcing of the women's team, which hasn't been all that flash in the past. And the third one was, do we have a kit release date, or have I missed the email?
I don't remember these questions.
I'll have to remember all those questions.
Yeah.
There's a couple
I need to.
I want to get in before the hard close.
There's also some questions coming in online.
Yeah.
Yes.
A couple of questions online.
Yeah, get some of that.
We'll start with the grand final one that's been there's been a lot of debate because it's been a hot topic.
Mm-hmm.
I think the issue, and this is definitely been my position on it prior to even taking a role with the club, is that there's factors that need to be communicated to the wider audience, including our members and fans, and it comes down to communication and understanding how these decisions are made and why they're made. And I do believe that at the time when the decisions were made, that it was to commercially benefit the league as a whole, and also to benefit the clubs as a whole.
Survival.
Yeah, and I think now fans are not silly. I think fans understand that. But how it's communicated to them and when it's communicated is something that can be improved. And so I think that if our fans and members were given sufficient time and sufficient detail to understand the merits of giving a grand final to a certain state or not doing it, and what are the pros and cons of this decision, and how is this decision unfolding, and how does this impact clubs, or how does it benefit clubs, I think everyone can then make an objective and reasonable decision or form an objective view. Now, yes, as a fan and as a footballer, as a purist, if we've earned, and I'm playing all season, I'm out there, and Brisbane Roar, we put our heart and soul, we put everything out in the pitch, and we earn a grand final. Of course, we want to play at home because that's it's an advantage from a sporting aspect, but our fans deserve it. So, that's something, and that's a conversation that will continue to happen at the APL level. But I think in this case, there were definitely merits commercially for all the clubs for that decision to be made. It's just how it was communicated is really my my position. And admittedly, Neil, I can't remember the second question.
The second question was in regards to the women.
Oh, sorry.
So in regards to the women's, one of the the things that we came across in our very first week was a discrepancy between the men and the women in terms of their resources and actually in regards to their staffing, which was quite sad. So very quickly, and this doesn't have to be a long answer, we worked very quickly to rectify that. We're extremely excited to say that that our women's side, after meeting with Isha, our captain, who was announced today, which is fantastic, that they're well and truly staffed and resourced exactly the same as the men. So last year, just as an example, they didn't have a team manager. We worked very quickly to rectify that. Little things like kit officers and support staff that the women deserve that they didn't have. And that was just through a very simple conversation with Ish, and she just outlined these things very, very direct, which is Ish style. But it was good to hear from her that a very honest and candid conversation of what the girls wanted, and really it was a pretty silly conversation in regards to their requests, which we've rectified very quickly, and the girls will have everything that the men have moving forward. Kit launch, Shawnee. Do we have a date yet for our kit launch, or are we still
Mid-September.
A little vague, but mid-September.
Why did you leave the tail on? There was a great debate when we looked at the years ago about whether the tail stayed on.
Well, one thing I will say about our brand, I think that you'll start to see a few things change over the next 12 months. What we want to do is really respect and create some nostalgia to the past. It's not about looking back, but it's actually about showing a little respect. And we have such a fantastic playing group that have come before us. And unfortunately, we've actually lost that connection. So moving forward, we've already re-engaged with a lot of the players from the past. We want to bring them to games. We want to offer them a ticket. Good. And we really want to bring those players back to really feel a part of the club. Every player, that man and woman that plays for our club will have a ticket at Brisbane Roar moving forward.
You know they didn't do that for the past Matildas for this World Cup. They didn't invite them to. Because it was a FIFA. No.
Is there any more questions? Because Shawnee, is it?
Yeah, there's one online I can read out.
Thank you.
So there's just one online from Raphael Burnham, who's watching on the live stream. Thanks, Raph.
Thanks, Raph.
Just regarding recruitment.
Yeah.
Just previously, why does the club have the salary cap, but yet doesn't choose to spend it properly? And I believe that's on the
I guess there's a bit of a subjective question. No, thanks, Raph, for the question. We greatly appreciate every opinion in regards to how we use our money within that salary cap. I think that the most important thing for us to explain from a new management perspective is that moving forward in the last 4 weeks, we've got a completely new recruitment strategy and process that Kaz and I are focusing on with our football department, and we've already gone into detail about that tonight. I think that now moving forward, we've been clear with what we are chasing in terms of completing our squad, and that is a visa number 9 and maybe 1 or 2 extra players in other positions, which I won't go into too much detail about. But in regards to the salary cap, and I've heard it tonight with Wally about other teams spending more money on certain visa players. Of course, other clubs are going to spend whatever they need to spend, subject to their own strategy and their own recruitment process. But we've been very clear on our parameters this season. Moving forward, things may evolve, things may change, but for this season moving forward, what's really crucial is that everyone understands Kaz and I's perspective on getting this club back to where we all want it to be, and it's going to be a process. We are not looking too far forward. We are really present in the day, and we know that to get the club back to where we need to get it to, we need to rebuild the foundations and that doesn't mean going and filling the squad with 17 and 18-year-olds, but it's a very strategic strategy to rebuild the squad to make sure that we've got the best young talent coming through. And so to answer Rafa's question, we are absolutely spending the salary cap. There's only a couple of spots to be filled. But is there anything else on the salary cap, Kaz, or that?
I think it's an extremely valid question, and I think we've answered it tonight, and we're happy to speak about it more often and openly. But I think it would be an evolution, and the more signings we make and the way that the team performs is something that we'll assess and we'll review. But the type of analytical data, the type of attention to detail that we want as the management team now is we're taking much more care and thought process, and we just are so in line with understanding how we can get the best out of every player that comes through. So I think we've got a fantastic squad, and of course everyone's entitled to observe, and everyone's probably going to have a subjective view on how we perform, and we are in that game. We need to win. We need results. But I would say that since we have come in, as Zach mentioned, the recruitment policy, the way that we're doing things is evolving. So I believe that appropriately for attracting the best players in the positions that we require moving forward. But again, I think in all our squads moving forward into this season, I'm pretty excited, and I know Zach is as well, and so is everyone at the club.
Do you leave fill your squad now, or leave a couple of spots for the transfer window in January, February, whenever it is?
We won't. We'll make sure that the squad is full because we need more to make sure that we're covered in a couple of key. I think that just to be for a visa number 9, the right visa number 9, and potentially a little bit more depth in defence. But we'll go into this season with a very, very strong, resilient team that Ross will empower to get the most out of the squad, and then we'll assess it obviously each and every transfer window.
Yep.
I think we're just about there. Sean, are you happy to close it off? Yeah?
Just before we close, any questions for Kai before Shelby got one more?
Go on, Kai. Sure. He's up there very patiently all night.
All right, thanks.
We should,
yeah, we'll
we
just
should
finish it.
express our thanks to these boys for coming and sitting and
Thank you.
listening through a lot of boring questions.
Can I just ask Kai something? Yeah. Do you like your crowns when you receive them? Do you like your crowns from the?
Okay, Shawnee, I'll just close it up.
I don't know if you know anything about the Royal Women.
We do. Yeah.
They present a crown to
their
player of the match.
Yeah.
I think Kai's won it a few times.
Well done, Kai. No, thanks so much to Kai for coming.
Yeah, Kai seems to win that one quite a bit, I think.
Yeah. Kai's one of our fan favourites.
And the girl's got an orange.
Yeah. There you go. Well, from Kaz and I, thank you so much from the club. Thank you so much to everyone that's online. Thank you very much. We look forward to doing more of these fan forums. And again, thanks to Kai and Macklin for joining us. You'll see us more and more around the club. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you. Thanks, mate.
Do you want to know the result?
No.